Welcome to New Moon, New Music. And this is a brand new podcast type of thing that we're starting to get information out there from my brain out into, some kind of podcast place or some place that it lands. The subjects will be New Moon, New Music. Once a month, we're going to, every new moon. That happens every month. Did you know that? And at every new moon, we're going to have an episode like this type of thing, different subjects, and new music. Sometimes it'll be old music, and what makes it new is that you've never heard it before. Sometimes it'll be a record or a project I'm working on that you haven't heard, but you will in these episodes that I put together. So it's a way of letting you know new music, for one thing, to remind you that there's a new moon every sort of 28 days, if you look up, and also to let you know projects that I'm working on. So that's why we're doing this. And you are now looking at the very first one. And this one is coming out on August 4th, is at the new moon. And the significance of that, once we saw that calendar, was that's the birthday of my good friend and great drummer, Kenny Malone. Happy birthday, Kenny, wherever you are. And so Kenny Malone is going to be the story of this episode, basically. I played with Kenny, I don't even remember. We started maybe in 94, 95-ish area. And I have a little story about Kenny Malone, the drummer. We played a jingle together, and we were just players on it. There was a probably 8-piece band or something doing some jingle for dog food or Cadillac or something. No big deal. You just read a chart. You stay high energy for 30 seconds because that's what it is. And that's not where I really connected with Kenny. Where I connected with Kenny was the next session that we did, which was actually working on music rather than jingles, actually songs and a record and all that. And so I have a little story of my history in Nashville as a studio musician. Mostly I got hired as an acoustic guitar player. A guy named Ron Chansey hired me when I first got to town. I had no other work at all. And Ron was doing jingles, pretty steadily. Ron used to produce the Oak Ridge Boys and Billy Crash Craddock, and just, had great success, especially with the Oaks. And anyway, Ron called me to be his acoustic guitar player on these sessions, like out of nowhere. So the only work I had for the first couple of years in Nashville was Ron Chansey. Thank you, Ron. And I know Ron heard about me from his son, Blake Chansey. And Blake is really well known, and he was one of the producers of the Dixie Chicks. So anyway, that's that small little group that Nashville actually becomes eventually when you stay here long enough. There's little bits of people and groups that you know and get to hang around with, and they call you and for sessions and all that kind of stuff. I had a lot of experience at that time playing as the acoustic guitar player. I was the multi-instrumentalist, mandolin, banjo, dobro, whatever. And that was another reason Ron called me, I do believe, was because you didn't need to call 2 or 3 guys on those instruments. You could call me, and I'd play well enough to just get us through the session. The way I felt on sessions was when we'd hear a playback, let's say all 8 musicians go into the control room maybe to hear the playback of the song we just did. And I knew that I was pissing off every drummer that I ever played with. And I played with a lot of them. And they could tell that I was green and new, and also that I rushed. And where I rushed was going into choruses on transitions. Chorus, to solo, verse to chorus, those kinds of transitions. I would just get excited because I'm trying to build up the music. The better, the traditional session players don't get excited at transitions. They keep it together. And me, Mr. Green, I was getting excited and rushing, and I would literally be in the control room, and the drummer would say out loud to everyone, "Daryl, do you need more of my hi-hat in your headphones?" And that was the signal, basically, that I was out of time, and that everyone else now knew that I was out of time, because the drummer would announce it publicly. And that, so every session I was on, I was sweating bullets, like, oh my God, I got to hear that hi-hat, and I got to not get excited about this song. I got to just sort of hold it in. You know, we've got 3 or 4 minutes to hold it in. It's not section by section. And that's my history. The early years of Nashville I thought I was pissing off every drummer in town. And so this is where Kenny Malone comes in. The second session I ever did with Kenny, not the jingle thing, but was an album. There was a Texas singer-songwriter we were working on. And the band was me, Kenny Malone, and Roy Husky Jr. And so there I am with my, beaten in message to myself that I rush through songs, through sections of songs particularly. And then at that session, that's the one where I played with those two guys and realized we were playing music, not just a chart or a metronomic kind of playing. We were getting excited at the chorus and the solo or different sections, but we were listening to each other and playing. And that was the first session, number one, of me playing in Nashville, where I felt as if I were playing music rather than sort of being browbeaten by the drummers. And I would mention this to Kenny, even this guy I kind of just met, Kenny Malone, and he said, "Man, your time is great. We're playing songs, we're not playing metronomes." So Kenny's the drummer in Nashville who never played to a click. So all of them play with the click and have that capability. And actually it's an ability is what it is. And you can learn how to play with the click and make it feel right. And the best, sort of study drummers in those ways can make a click feel like it's grooving. That's a talent they have, and they've developed it through, a lot of hard work. Well, Kenny never did that. He always felt the metronome was the enemy. And so he literally refused way back, maybe even the 80s, of like, if there's a click, I'm packing up and going home, and he literally would. So Kenny was always, hey, let's play organically, like we're doing this together. So once I found this group of Kenny Malone and Roy Husky Jr. that made me feel like my time wasn't awful and I was pissing off drummers and stuff, I started calling these guys for everything that I did, all my stuff. So early on, it was Roy Husky Jr. and Kenny Malone. And then Roy passed away, and then me and Kenny kept playing, and we made many records together. So I'm going to take you on a little journey of Kenny Malone here today. Happy birthday, August 4th, Kenny Malone, Leo, fellow Leo like myself. And play to you a song that me and Kenny Malone, we had Danny Thompson on bass from London, England, Dan Dugmore on pedal steel and guitar. I was on acoustic and lead vocal. And then we had the great privilege of having Sam Bacco on percussion. Sam is the head percussion at the Nashville Symphony. And Sam and Kenny are just brothers, drumming brothers. And this was the only session I ever did that had those two guys together. So I want to play for you as new music a song by Cat Stevens called Wigwam.
I'd like to live in a wigwam. I'd like to live in a wigwam. I'd like to live in a wigwam and dance around the totem pole. I'd like to live in an igloo. Yeah, I'd like to live in an igloo. I would like to live in an igloo and fish from an ice hole. I'd like to ride on a caravan. I'd like to take a ride on a caravan. Yeah, I'd like to ride on a caravan and sing with the gypsies. like to live on a commune. Yeah, I'd like to live on a commune. Yeah, I'd like to live on a commune. And people can call me hippie. Hey. I don't want to live in a palace. I don't want to live in a palace. I don't want to live in no palace. There's too many empty rooms. I don't want to live in a barracks. I don't want to live in a barracks. Oh, I don't want to live in a barracks and wake up to the bugle tune. I just want to live in a tree hut. Yeah, I'd like to live in a tree hut. Yeah, I'd like to live in a tree hut and listen to the sound of birds. I don't want to live in a jailhouse. I don't want to spend my time in no jailhouse. I don't want to live in a jailhouse and be fed through the bars. I'm glad I'm alive, I'm alive. I'm glad I'm alive, I'm alive. I'm glad I'm alive, I'm glad I'm alive. I'm glad I'm alive, I'm alive, yeah. I'm glad I'm alive, I'm alive. I'm glad I'm alive. I'm glad I'm glad, I'm glad, I'm glad. I'm glad I am alive. Get our heads up in the sky. We gotta get our heads up in the sky.
So yes, there's a story about this song. Why did I do a Cat Stevens song? Okay, here's the story. Somewhere around 2004, somewhere in the fall, Bush was president, and people could be on a no-fly list or something like that. Somehow or another, Cat Stevens was on that list, and he and his daughter were flying from London to the U.S., maybe D.C., and they were intercepted. It was a private plane and went to somewhere in Maine, like Bangor, Maine or something, and wasn't allowed to enter the country. Cat was on his way to Nashville to make a Nashville recording using a lot of my friends. I wasn't on it, but a lot of my friends, acoustic cats, were on the session. So Cat was going to make an acoustic Nashville record, and it seemed like it was about, the fall of 2004. Well, they intercepted his plane, and our government in the U.S. wouldn't allow him to come in. And so that botched the sessions, and it was in the news and all that kind of stuff of him being detained. And that pissed me off, that our country wouldn't allow this artist named Cat Stevens, Peace Train, and The Morning Is Broken, Cat Stevens, into our country to make art in Nashville. And so it made me mad, so I cast a session as ASAP. Danny Thompson was in town from London, and I cast a session that you just heard there, and I did about 3 Cat Stevens songs. I brought in Jonelle Mosser to do one, and we did a duet thing. We did Peace Train. Here's the deal. I lost those tracks. Those tracks don't exist. I can't find them. I remember doing it. I remember why I did it, but I never found the evidence of a session, so it's lost somewhere. And there is one thing that survived, and I didn't see it for years. I've only seen it in the last year, and that's this Wigwam song. I had a mix of it, And so it's the 2 mix. So I never got back to the multi-track. So what you just heard is what we did as a rough board mix the day we recorded it. Miles Wilkinson was the engineer on this. And that's what you just heard. So fly forward a few years, I had a record called Modern Hymns, where I did a bunch of covers of some of my heroes. And I put out that record, which I love that record, and I licensed it to another record company, and it kind of just went nowhere, you know. After 5 years, which was the contract, the album reverted back to me. So basically, it's been out of print since 2013. We're in 2024 right now. That's how long it's been out of print. So what I'm doing is bringing that album, Modern Hymns, and beginning the song with Wigwam, which was not part of it ever. It's only because I found this track after all these years. And then I thought, wait a minute, Modern Hymns is out of print, let's put it back in print. Wigwam has never been heard, let's re-release this and put Wigwam on it. And that's what you just heard. So there's a new record coming out called The New Modern Hymns. So it's got all the old stuff from 2008. And it's got this new track, Wigwam, that no one's ever heard. You just heard it right there for the first time. And that's Kenny Malone. So let me tell you a little bit more about Kenny Malone. Kenny Malone was a jazzer, full tilt. I would call him a beatnik area cat. He was pre-hippie. This is late 50s, early 60s. And he loved jazz. And he loved the technical of jazz. And Kenny went into the Navy. He was going to be a career Navy guy. He was in the Navy for 14 years when he said, hey, I'm moving to Nashville, somewhere in the early 70s. And there's a funny story about Kenny because he was in the jazz bands. It used to be there was a tradition where the armed forces had absolutely the best big bands that existed, honestly. And any big bands that were outside of the military, I guarantee you most of them got their training through the military band. It was a high level of musicianship. You know, even Glenn Miller was part of the armed forces, so it goes back even to the 40s. And those programs stayed intact. They're probably still there, but the big band version of it might have dwindled. But when Kenny was there, which is to say late 50s, early 60s, through the 60s, big band jazz was still happening. And then and Kenny played in those bands. And he also played in different bands that would play for funerals of dignitaries and this and that. And Kenny, you know, played for Eisenhower, for example. He played for Kennedy. And so he did all of that, and he was the head of percussion department at the School of Music, the Armed Forces Collective School of Music. It wasn't just Navy or Army, it was the whole thing. And he was the head of the percussion department. Wrote books, manuals, all that kind of stuff. And the teachers of those high-level classes had a thing called a faculty lab band from the School of Music. And they would get together maybe 2 times a year and do a concert in D.C. and just, you know, kill it. They had staff arrangers. They would play as a section. They were monsters. And Kenny was that drummer. So Kenny came from a big band drumming background. And the thing about being a big band drummer is you are in the driver's seat. You are driving 15 pieces, usually acoustically. The horns are playing. Piano might be mic'd, we hope, and maybe a guitar's going through an amp, bass probably through an amp. But the drummer is sitting back there driving the snot out of these bands, and Kenny was one of those guys. And from a drumming technical point of view, that's about as high as it gets in many, many ways. Listen to this song, this tune from from the Faculty Lab Band School of Music, 1968. This is Kenny Malone on big band drums. Check him out. So there's my Kenny, and that's where he came from. The reason I'm telling you is I want to show you the evolution of Kenny Malone as a drummer in Nashville. So after 14 years of being in the Navy, Kenny wanted to see if there was someplace else to be with music. So he left what was going to be a career time of being in the military, being a Navy drummer and instructor and all that, and he moved to Nashville of all places. So one of the most, complete and technical and put together big band drummers comes to a town where none of that is exactly called for. And here's the funny thing. So if you heard the Faculty Lab Band right there, and then you hear where Kenny evolved to as a drummer in this town, you'll see quite a little journey. One of the first things Kenny did that put him on the map as being the first call session guy back in the day was a song of Dobie Gray's called Drift Away. And it was a hit in all charts. It crossed rock, it pop, country, it landed everywhere, and it was a smash. And Kenny was the groove drummer on it, because a lot of this song was based on the groove. It needed to feel good. Well, there's Kenny Malone, that jazz drummer guy, making it feel good. So listen to this track, or some of this track of Drift Away. Hone in on the drums and the groove and why it feels so good.
Day after day I'm more confused, yet I look for the light through the pouring rain. You know that's a game that I hate to lose, and I'm feeling the strain. Ain't it a shame? Oh, give me the beat, boys, and free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Oh, give me the beat, boys, and free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Beginning to think that I'm wasting time. I don't understand the things I do. The world outside looks so unkind, and I'm counting on you to carry me through. Oh, give me the beat, boys, and free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Yeah, give me the beat, boys, and free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. And when my mind is free, you know a melody can move me. And when I'm feeling blue, the guitar's coming through to soothe me. Thanks for the joy that you've given me. I want you to know I believe in your song, in rhythm and rhyme and harmony. You've helped me along, making me strong. Oh, give me the beat, boys, and free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Give me the beat, boys, and free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Oh, give me the beat, boys, and free my soul. Wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Oh, hey, hey, yeah. Give me the beat, boys, and free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Now, 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 won't you take me? Oh, take me.
So there you go, Drift Away, a song Kenny was really known for and set fire to his studio career. He was already doing pretty well, but this just lit it up, and he was busier than he could even be. He told me that there was a certain year in the 80s where he threw away his Codaphone because he didn't want more work. He was already doing more than he could stand, and he said he started feeling like every song sounded the same. Hello, Nashville, and all the drumming of his sounded the same. Hello, as if that was what was expected. And Kenny's an artist, and if you follow that faculty lab band drummer and then you hear Drift Away, make the connection there, and then put him in with all the sort of not so great songs and sort of predictable kind of country music songs that he was playing on at the time, he got sick of it. And but I could go on and on with that kind of stuff, but let me hone in on the Drift Away. So there's the groove of Kenny Malone, but now in the second verse where you hear that click, clack, or tick, tock, tick, tock, he did that. That's probably some kind of hand percussion that he did with a stick. But this is an illustration. The first line of the second verse is something like, Dobie says something like, da-da-da-da, I'm wasting time wasting time. Well, to Kenny Malone, when he heard the word time, it means, oh, I should play a clock. So Kenny Malone would listen to the lyrics and respond to the lyrics. So if the lyric mentioned something about time, he knew in his mind that meant he needs to play drums and make it sound like a clock. So that's the second verse. And he would do things like that. And then just notice did you see how he dropped out into that last chorus where the whole band goes away except Kenny's groove? So anyway, Kenny went on to have one of the best careers in Nashville drumming. Played on Jolene, for example. And think of Jolene for a minute. It still feels good. When you hear Jolene, I don't care where you are, it grooves. Well, hello, that's Kenny Malone. Another thing about Kenny, he was like the first guy who played in bluegrass as a drummer. And the first guys that I'm aware of that hired him was Newgrass Revival. And Newgrass were always on the outer edge anyway. They weren't full tilt bluegrass, but they could play it. And Kenny would play with them. And Kenny from there also played with Alison Krauss and on. Johnny Cash sessions, Merle Haggard. The only time that I know of Kenny playing big band jazz or reading a chart type of thing, like the old days when he was in the lab band in D.C., was television shows. He'd be hired to be the drummer for some pretty big deal orchestra / horn bands doing a television show, and he could read charts like crazy. He had great reading chops. And then here's about as simple as Kenny got on drums was Don Williams. Kenny played on all the Don Williams stuff, and if you can find a more simple drumming than what Kenny did on Don Williams, would you please let me know? Because I haven't heard it. And so here's this guy who went from the faculty lab band and now gets to Don Williams tracks and plays as simply as he does on Don's stuff. And that was, and it wasn't like Kenny was dumbing himself down. He was, he started to learn that what you do is do what's appropriate for the song. If the song needs to rock, well, he could rock. If it needs to swing, he could swing. If it needs to be click-clack, a boom chick, he could do all of that, and he was in service of the song. So now run forward to around 95 or so where I meet him, and I play on that first session where I don't feel like I'm making the drummers mad. And now I'm just actually playing music and songs, and there's my man, Kenny Malone. Well, that's why I hired him, and on all my records pretty much after that, and anytime I could drag him out on the road. He wasn't really a road cat, but he would play with me on the road, and I would only choose the best gigs possible, like Telluride, Merlefest, the good stuff. I didn't drag him around on a bunch of one-nighters. Let me see. That brings me then to him playing on my stuff. Let me play you a song that he played on, and he loved this song. Kenny loved this. Anytime we did a live show, hey, Kenny, what do you want to do? Oh, let's do Shattered Cross. He just loved playing it. And he's playing not a drum set on this thing, but a djembe that he made and constructed. It's a regular djembe that you could go down to Guitar Center and get, but he added some things to it. Kenny was really a mechanical mind too, and an inventor kind of mind. So he wasn't just a drummer, he could invent drums, he could invent percussion instruments, and he and Sam Bacco did exactly that. And Kenny customized a djembe, like a $300 djembe, and just made it his. And so he had different things on it, maybe 4 or 5 different things on the otherwise djembe. So listen, on Shattered Cross here, this is Kenny Malone starting it off with his groove. I mean, if you ever wanted groove, just have Kenny play. And that's how I started this song. Check it out, Shattered Cross.
you don't mess around with a man in black. You'll say something wrong that you can't take back. You go for a ride in his automobile to a spot in the woods just over the hill. No, you don't mess around with a man in black. You don't fool around with a woman in red. You will wake up alone in the cold, barren bed. She'll empty your pockets and rip out your heart and leave you the ruins of a life torn apart. No, you don't fool around with a woman in red. With a guy named Doc, you'll have a gun in your hands by 12 o'clock. Neath the sodium lights with your heart in your throat, your life won't amount to a bottle of smoke. Oh, you never make deals with a guy named Doc. Tales of temptation and loss, the rags of your dreams, your shattered cross. I have heard your confession, I know who you blame. If you had it all back, you'd just lose it again. Can't bank on redemption if you ain't safe. Don't bring me your tales of temptation and loss. Don't bring me the pieces of your shattered cross.
Yeah, there's Kenny. So, happy birthday, Kenny Malone, wherever you are. I do have something else to play for you. Kenny Malone was known for telling the worst jokes that this English language has created. And he loved them, the sort of the sillier or dumber or almost existential they were, the more he liked them. He was a fan of poor jokes, bad jokes, and he would laugh harder than anyone. Well, he'd have to, because no one else is exactly laughing. I'm laughing at him laughing, not at his silly joke. I'm laughing at how much he thinks this is funny. So let me play you a joke that for Danny Thompson's birthday, Danny was over in London, I had Kenny tell a joke to Danny for his birthday. Listen to this.
Let's see. How much time do I have?
As much time as you want.
Hey, Danny. Did you hear about the great Mexican magician? He told his crowd one night, he says, listen carefully. Uno, dos, and he vanished without a trace. Love you, brother.
So that's Kenny Malone. And The last time I got to talk to Kenny Malone, I was on the road in Colorado, and he was from Colorado, as a matter of fact. And so we called him, and it was during the lockdown-y kind of thing. It had just started opening up to where we could do some gigs, so I was out on the road. And Kenny, was here in Nashville, and he called me, and he said, and he was very excited. He said, "Man, let's go down to the Union Hall. The Union has a little theater there where Union members can get together and play. It's like a stage and an audience thing, but they'd shut the doors and just you could rehearse there." And he said, "Man, let's go down to the Union Hall, get Dave Pomeroy on bass. Maybe we'll get Dave Cinco to record it, but let's just get down," and I'd be on guitar. "Let's just go play, man. Let's have some fun." And I was on the road, and I was going to be on the road until October, and this would have been about August. And I said, "Man, Kenny, I'm on the road. Let's do it as soon as I get back in October, okay?" "Oh, okay, man." He'd never called me to do that before. He's always the guy you call to get him to come play on your thing. That's just the way it worked. He never called to have something put together on his own. And this one rare moment he did, and I couldn't be there. And I'm sure he didn't do that. He was starting with me, and he just didn't do it. And he told me one of those bad jokes. I wish I could remember it, because it was actually kind of great, but classically bad. And then, we hung up, we had a great talk. And then the next thing I know, I go into the river, the Middle Fork of the Salmon in Idaho. I usually do that every year for about a week. Play music for people on doing a boat lifetime adventure thing. And I'm there too, so it's an adventure for me. When I got off the river, and so there's no phones or nothing for about a week, I got off the river and I had emails and texts, telling me that Kenny had passed. And that's how I found out that Kenny had gone. But I had just had a conversation with him 5 days earlier where he's telling me a joke and he wants to play at the Union and all that kind of, regular old Kenny. Well, he caught COVID. And in a 5-day period, 7 at the most, he's a dead man. He's gone. And I find out about it when I come out of that river thing. And I really felt that was the most appropriate way I could lose my friend. If I had to lose him, to be in that vast canyon in Idaho, that seemed as vast as I thought Kenny Malone was. That seemed about right. That seemed about, okay, that's perfect, Kenny. You're still here. You're still telling me the bad jokes. How about the bad joke of, "Hey, Daryl, I died while you were in that canyon." And that'd be about right. And so then that was the end of our Kenny Malone. And I could go on and on and on about Kenny, fellow Leo, and great musician, and just a great guy to hang around with. He was really kind of a family member. So that's it. I could go on other episodes about Kenny, but I'm going to stop it right there. And thank you for joining us on the New Moon New Music series. And that's our time about Kenny Malone.